What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim, who just hopped in here. We'll give him a second, get ready to roll here. As obviously Tim in Green Bay, I'm in Tennessee here to talk some Green Bay Packers as we get ready to face the Minnesota Vikings tomorrow in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium. Going to be a hell of a game. Before we get started, let's give a quick shout out to our good friends over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since '92, specializing in Packers tickets. They're Wisconsin's largest ticket source with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Click on the link in the video description that'll send you to their website, theticketking.com. You can register as a customer. Go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Make sure you check Ticket King out on all social media platforms. Again, that's Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. All right, Tim, how we doing this morning, bud? We get the diesel flowing. We have time to get the diesel flowing or no?
Yeah. I don't know. It's flowing, but I don't know if it's coursing through my system just yet. I'm still kind of,
Good morning.
Hilarious, man. Hey, it's got to hit the bloodstream. You know what I mean? Before it actually counts, right? Got to get.
You can't drink it too fast. It's piping hot. Got to give it time, right?
Exactly. Man, we got a herd in here this morning. Appreciate everybody joining us as we get ready to talk Packers Vikings here on this glorious December 28th. I know we got 3 NFL games today. Down here in Tennessee, it's supposed to be 63 degrees. Pretty wild to think about. So we're going to have us an awesome day down here. Hopefully everybody's having a good morning. Shout out to Miss Jerry Weiss Corbley for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate you, Jerry. Thank you for supporting the show here and always being a blessing to us and the boys here. And obviously, man, the chat is just absolutely lit up. We got a bunch of people in here following him. And these Saturday morning shows are nice, Tim. We try to do them just late enough that people can sleep in a touch. If you're like me, you usually get up at 6:30 in the morning, local time. It's nice to sleep in for a couple hours and grab a cup of coffee and talk a little ball. So let's start off with this, man. Let's start off with our Patreon group and Joshua Dodge. Shout out to him. I've got it zoomed in because if we go and make it wide, it's going to be harder to see. But he's been keeping up with all of the interceptions this year for us. And basically what he's doing is going through, watching Chalk Talk, and getting the play description of each interception that we forced. All right. So we want to do this because we mentioned as soon as we switched to Jeff Hafley as defensive coordinator, and really even before then, we had mentioned why I'm not a big fan of man coverage. It's got its place, don't get me wrong, but there's some negatives to man coverage. It makes you a little bit vulnerable to the run, obviously, with the DBs having their back turned to the ball most of the time. And obviously in zone coverage, your eyes are on the ball constantly. You do your thing, Tim. Appreciate you, buddy. Eyes on the ball too in zone coverage, but also when you're playing man coverage, typically it's a cover one look, which makes you vulnerable to one-on-one matchups unless you're funneling the wide receiver or the tight end or the running back towards your help, right? So it's really that one-on-one matchup that many teams are looking to grab a hold of, whether you're playing zone or man. And the other thing is, like, with your eyes on the ball, you're going to pick the ball off more often. And listen, I didn't just think of this one day and go, hey, you know what? It makes sense that zone would lead to more interceptions. I've been studying this for a while, and everyone knows, whether you're a coach, a player, what have you, it's easier to pick the ball off when you're playing zone. Now, listen, zone has its weaknesses too. You can play press principle with zone, but it puts you in a very, very vulnerable spot if you've got a veteran quarterback that can read the field and boundary safeties and know exactly what defense you're in pre-snap. He knows once he beats that bump, I'm going to have wide open space here. And then typically you can make a move on the other zone defender who's probably keying in on another principle, another aspect of that specific zone defense. But it always leads to more interceptions. So Joshua Dodge has been tracking this for us, and appreciate him. And as you scroll down here, he's got every single game that we've gotten an interception, even the games we didn't. He's kind of specified that too, right? So basically what we've got, I don't know why that pulled up, is the grand tally. The total here is zone coverage. We now have 12 interceptions. This is after the Saints game where Zane Anderson got his interception in that 55 front free spur cover 6 half invert, right? So we're now up to 12 interceptions in zone defense and 3 interceptions in man coverage. And people probably saying, Clayton, why does that matter? Why are you tracking this? because I wanted to prove a point that this is why you should not be team man coverage. Like, it's such a lazy way to fan. It's such a lazy way to, lack of a better word, bitch and moan about a defense. We need more man coverage. We need to be more aggressive. How many times have we heard that, right? We need to be more aggressive with man coverage. Man coverage doesn't equal more aggressive. It just doesn't, right? Now, if you go zero man, obviously you're blitzing the quarterback, but we've been more effective at just rushing forward with simulated pressure as opposed to bringing blitzes. So you want to be aggressive. When I think of an aggressive defense, Tim, I think of sacks, right, pressures, and I think of picks. That's what I think of an aggressive defense. And that's not what man coverage does. It's not. So man coverage can be very effective if a team has one target that they're trying to isolate at all times. Like, think about when we had Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. It was constantly ISO game. It was let's get Devontae Adams out in space and let him win a one-on-one matchup. If you bracket cover or double team a
There
player,
is no one-on-one. Yeah.
You can take them away, and now your other guys have to win their one-on-one matchups. Well, listen, like, let's just take our opponent this week, for example, the Minnesota Vikings. If you try to double Justin Jefferson, right, what happens? Then you've got Jordan Addison running free. If you try to double Jordan Addison, then what happens? You've got Justin Jefferson running free, right, in a one-on-one matchup in man coverage.
So you double nobody and you play zone.
And here's the thing, too. You could play double bracket with a four-man rush, meaning you're going to double both their top two receivers. Well, guess what? They got Hawkinson at tight end.
Yep.
Guess what? They've got Aaron Jones coming out of the backfield, right? So if you get a team that's got more than one weapon on offense, I'm telling you, even just two solid weapons on offense, that even going to double bracket forces you to bring only a four-man rush, and it also forces you to not have at least a too-high look. And like, the number one defense we run in Green Bay is that cover three zone. And really what that equates to is you've got three deep, right? And that deters offenses from taking shots. Again, what's the name of the game? Control the explosive plays, passing plays at 20 yards or more, running plays at 10 yards or more. So go ahead, Tim. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but that's kind of why we've been tracking this, and it's pretty damn cool to see that we're one of the best teams at taking the ball away, and obviously zone coverage has been the key to it.
Yeah, and that's what, like you said, aggressive football is from a defensive perspective. Think rallying to the ball carrier. Like you said, pressure pick, covered sack. We talk about that all the time. Maintain your edges, keep that quarterback in the well and get after it. And this Hafley scheme, man, is something else to think we flipped this defense in one season. Right. It's really fun to watch.
It is, man. It's been nothing but a blessing to watch, and Hafley never being satisfied. And early on, when there were so many people that was just like, this sucks, the pass rush sucks, that we were supposed to get a more aggressive defense. The reason that fans thought we were going to get a more aggressive defense is because media members said we were getting this mostly man coverage. Remember when they kept
press man? No, not just man, but press man, right? That was the big narrative. We're going to play a lot of press man.
And remember, it was, man, the exotic looks, the exotic blitzes that he brings. There was articles written everywhere, and I was going, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like
those exotic stunts.
Like,
never seen those before. Never seen a D lineman stun or twist before.
And maybe they meant exotic looks. That's what you're getting. But these exotic blitzes, guys, a blitz is when you bring at least 5 rushers. And again, we're leading. We're in the top 3 last I heard in pressure percentage on just bringing 4 rushers. We do blitz from time to time, but we blitz like we're playing the Vikings, who probably blitz more than anybody in the league. And we're a defense that blitz. We're probably bottom 5 in blitzes, right? So there's a difference between mugging the line of scrimmage, showing blitz, and then running a fire zone, right? And actually bringing 5 or more rushers. We will do it from time to time, and it has its place. Don't get me wrong. But shout out to Bucks Raised Bolts. Been a member for 1 month. Appreciate you supporting the channel here, buddy. He says, "Good morning, everyone. As a Bucks fan, rooted Packers. Good deal, man. Hey,
I love it.
Listen, the Bucks, they've got a shot here, man. And Baker Mayfield has showed he can put 40 on the board, 50 on the board. if I remember correctly. That team could get hot at any minute, man. And
Baker's a
Tim,
baller, man.
yeah, Tim
He
pointed out.
catches a lot of hate, but I tell you, he's a baller.
Yeah, and Tim pointed out before, guy, like, hey, when we see that Buccaneers logo as a potential playoff matchup, that brings back bad memories, man. It really does.
We have Tampa Bay PTSD for sure.
So, appreciate you supporting the show there, buddy, and good luck to your Bucks unless they're playing the Packers, which that goes without saying, I know. So, Chase Green in the house is Clayton. How can we attack the bad guards of the Vikings? Will we run pick stunts and double mug? That would be the way I would do it. But the top priority, in my opinion, Chase, is wide nine looks. Come out in a wide nine look to isolate the tackles. That way they can't. It's going to take the guards and the center working together. What you're wanting is there's going to be a double team with a guard in the center. That's going to happen, right? But you want to be able to manipulate the middle of that defense where you've got at least one-on-one matchup. And the goal should be to take your best interior pass rusher and match them up with that one-on-one matchup. Now, it's easier said than done because what KOC is going to do in Minnesota is he's going to look at the tape and know you're going to try to do that, and he's going to try to run towards that double team and keep you out of those specific looks. Now, another thing that comes to mind just right off the bat is running a TE stunt, right? Let me give you an example. If you put Kenny Clark in a one tech on one side of the field, right, meaning he's in between the center and the guard, that center and that guard are going to double team him. And then on the opposite of him in the three tech, have them run a TE stunt where he rushes the outside shoulder of the guard into the tackle, and then have Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, Brenton Cox Jr., LVN loop inside off of that. That would be a way you could exploit it. But the problem with that is everyone has to be sound in their pass rush to make sure you don't leave a huge lane for Sam Darnold to first of all, you got to focus on your passing lanes because he will dink and dunk underneath, although they do have the shot plays as well. But you got to be disciplined in your pass lanes, meaning you got to get your hands up in those throwing lanes, right? Every pass rush, many people don't know this, is synced up with the secondary on the backside. That's what we mean by complementary football is your front four rush or five, however many you're bringing, has got to maximize the opportunity of the coverage on the backside, meaning we know where the weak spot is in our coverage before we call it, right? There's a weak spot in every single coverage that's called. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing taking away the throwing lanes in towards the weak spot of those negatives on the backside, if that makes sense. So that's one aspect. Also, the running game. If we know Aaron Jones is a slasher, if you get crazy running TE picks and TT twists and picks and pick stunts and all that, what's going to happen is he's going to be able to gas you for explosives in the running game because you're going to get guys too far outside the rush lane. But the thing that stood out to me the most here recently is our guys have become really, really disciplined in their rush lanes. And that's why you've seen a dip in the productivity in the pass rush this year, but it's also why you've seen the running game begin to get stopped for the first time in a long time, Tim.
Yeah, I think it's probably because of Coach Reb screaming.
Right.
Probably loading up on cough drops, screaming about maintaining your rush integrity, and it's paying off, man. We talk a lot about Jeff Hafley. It's also a testament to the staff that he brought in here, this team that we have between Coach Ogabasi and Rebrovich and Coach Camp and Coach Ansley in the secondary. I think has done a great job with
he really has,
with our DBs. So really, it's just a testament to this staff as a whole.
Yeah, and when you mention the double mug, Chase, it's huge. What we mean by double mug, guys, is when some people call it double barrel. Some people, I think LaFleur and our coaching staff refer to it as coffee house. It's where you put your two inside linebackers in the A gap. So you've got two wide nines. Typically when you do that double A gap mug, you got two wide nines, and then you got two five techs, meaning you're going to play the three techs, three techs. You're playing the outside shoulder of the guards, and then you got those backers in there. And what that does is that forces the offensive line to have to be ready for one-on-one matchups. And then what you'll do is you'll drop guys out typically on the defensive end. So one of the goals should be with that double A gap mug or that double barrel coffee house, whatever you want to call it, is everybody's mugging the line and you're going to have the defensive end drop into coverage, right? We've seen 55 drop. They love doing it with Kingsley Enagbare. That's been how many times have we shown on Chalk Talk 55 drop? That's what we're talking about is you're actually dropping you're dropping Kingsley and Igbare, you're showing rush on the edge and dropping him into coverage. The goal there is to get the tackle thinking about having to block him. One kick step outside, now he's in coverage. He's late to get back over and help. And the pressure is coming from somewhere else with a 4-man rush. So typically what will happen when we mug the A gap, it's one of three things. Either both backers are just sugaring and they'll drop into coverage and you just bring your normal 4-man rush with the defensive line. That's one aspect. Or you'll have a mock fire with a 55 drop or whichever defensive end dropping into coverage. That's another option. Or you'll have a will fire with the mock dropping into coverage and then the defensive end dropping out. So it's still a 4-man rush, but what you're doing is you're forcing the offensive line to have to respect all 6 of those defenders who are on the line of scrimmage. And our backers are doing a hell of a job getting back and covering. Quay does that really well when he's healthy. I know he's out this game. He's got the athleticism to mug the A or B gap and then get back down the seam on your Tampa 2 calls or your Tampa 2 matches. And then the same thing with Edgerrin Cooper. He's just a physical freak. He's able to mug that gap and still get back. Although most of the time when we've got Edgerrin Cooper up there and we want to rush him, what he'll typically do is go first. And this has been really interesting. Like he'll go first in what I'll call like either a mock T stunt or a mock or a will T stunt. And some people call those pick stunts. I like to specify which, if somebody says it's a pick stunt, that doesn't tell me anything other than there's a stunt in the middle. I want to know specifically which position. Was it on the strong side of the formation with the backer? Was it the weak side of the formation? Which tackle was running the stunt with him? But they'll bring Edgerrin Cooper, right? They'll fire him off, and he will go in first. There he is. He'll hit the either the guard or the center and take on the double team, and then the D tackle will loop around, looking to free up and also protect that rush lane on his way in. And Cooper ends up beating the double team for the sack. It's wild. Like we talked early, Tim, about Quay Walker might be that Micah Parsons type. Micah Parsons' first year in the league. Edgerrin Cooper seems exactly to me. If you watch Micah Parsons his rookie year and you watch what Edgerrin Cooper's doing, it looks like a freaking mirror. The only difference is Micah Parsons, the way I remember it, was on the field all the time. Yep. And Edgerrin Cooper, they've kind of tapered his snaps. And it's obviously increasing as the year goes on.
Yeah, especially without Quay, right? I think we're going to see a little bit more of him kind of stepping into that role, especially against the Vikings, using that athleticism and that speed and that FBI that he has. I like when he does you'll see Hafley send him kind of on it's like he sugars the sugar and then it is a blitz, like he'll creep up on that line and then he'll shade back and allow that quarterback to read him as dropping back. And then as soon as the ball snap, he's coming. And then you'll do it the opposite way, right? He'll show blitz, breathe down that line, and then he's out, right? We see those Tampa 2 looks, and it's just really fun to watch him play football. I'm sad I haven't gotten to see much of him and Quay together out there.
Yeah, me too.
Fingers crossed that we're still going to get that. That would honestly be the dream for me. It'd be Eric Wilson, Quay Walker, and Edge Cooper out there would be a good look for me. But hey, man, it's exciting to have a player of this caliber. We were excited on draft day when Goody pulled the trigger and made that pick, and he looks like a genius for it, despite the injuries that Coop's been dealing with, off and on. Even in training camp, going all the way up through the season, he's starting to get that availability that we want and need from him, and I fully anticipate the snap count's going to continue to go up for him going forward.
Yeah. I do too, man. And Carl K., thank you, buddy, for the compliment there, man. I'm glad that it made sense. Sometimes it's hard to explain. And again, we've got podcast listeners, so I really try to take that in consideration. How can I explain this where they can see the visualization? But yeah, I mean, again, what you mentioned too. Another thing that they do is that nickel fire. You've seen the strip sack with Keyshawn Nixon. Matter of fact, we got one of those against Minnesota last time we played them. Remember that? So yep. Keyshawn Nixon hit on a strip sack in that game. So what they'll do there is the same look, right? You're in a nickel set, nickel 4-2-5, and you'll have Keyshawn in the slot, and they love to run those nasty splits just like we do. One of the things that's an advantage for a defense sometimes in the nasty split, or a weakness from the offensive perspective, is you got everybody so tightly condensed that nickel is basically on the defensive line, right? So if he's on the defensive line and you're showing a double A-gap mug, and then what you do is you end up firing. One of the four ends up being the nickel, right? And you drop the D in on that side to take away that hot read to the slot or to the Y if they're going with a tray look. That can create some serious problems too. Let's see. Chris Ann in the chat says, I was curious, so I watched a Vikings YouTube show last night. Overconfidence is an understatement. They are a crude people. Go back, go. That's what we want right there, Chris. We want them to think that the Packers have zero shot at this game. Again, we show them the predictions. Out of 10 people on NFL Network, 9 of them picked the Vikings. Once the injury report dropped, now the Packers are 1.5-point underdogs. That all sounds great to me. Now, again, with the Vegas line, 1.5-point underdog on the road, you give the home team typically 3 points, so that would suggest that the matchup is actually slightly tilted in Green Bay's favor at 1.5 points. That's why before, when the Packers were 1.5-point favorites, I was going, man, that's closer to like a 3 or a 4 point favorite. So just keep that in mind too. But again, man, I love that, Tim. I love being the underdog, and the Packers have been the underdog ever since Aaron left. That's what it's been, and I just want to hold on to that as long as we can. I really do, man.
Absolutely, and I'm sure like Chris Ed makes a great point. Vikings fans are never short on overconfidence, and I agree with the crude people statement as well. Can't stand Vikings fans. But I think when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings football team, I'm sure Kevin O'Connell's got his guys ready and focused. And I don't think the Vikings are overconfident and taking us for granted. I really don't, especially not even if you just look at the last time these two teams played. Like, we did not lay down, we did not go away, and we fought till the very end. So I think they're fully anticipating a Packer team getting off that bus ready to smash some heads. So should be a great game tomorrow.
It's a great comment here from Ron. I'm glad he brought it up. Green Bay in zone coverage, allowing a 93.8 passer rating when targeting their linebackers, cornerbacks, and safeties combined. You see how when they have to throw in 2 or 3 different things into one to make it sound like something's better than it is? In contrast, they've given up a 61.1 passer rating in man coverage. So you see that, and you read that article, and I'm sure that's what it was. It would suggest, oh, man coverage is better, right? Conveniently left out the 12 interceptions in zone coverage and only 3. You ask any coach on the face of God's green earth, which would you rather have? A lower passer rating when targeted, or, I don't know, 9 more interceptions? Which would you rather have?
Turnovers.
Right? And also conveniently left out of that is the run. Where's the run defense numbers? Throw those in there too. Let's see what the run D has done, right? Because we've seen it all year long on Chalk Talk. And I got to be real. Like, I was going into the season, I'm going to keep an open mind because I've always felt like zone is the way to go. Maybe man is it. Let's see. And every time somebody's gashing us with a big play, it's – how many times you heard me say on Chalk Talk, especially last year, that damn man coverage, man.
Yep.
I've been just getting cooked in man coverage. So, again,
that's probably the biggest contrast between Barry and Hafley, right?
Right.
Is that Joe Barry had us in, kind of that his version of quarters at times, and we saw guys defending blades of grass, but then we also saw him mix in man a lot more than Jeff Hafley is doing. So, and I think when Haf does call the man sets, he has good timing with it. He has good, just like when he's dialing up blitzes. You never too much of one thing. You don't want to get predictable, and keep that offense guessing. And I just think that's the biggest difference we have with our new coordinator.
Yeah, Ron Sample goes on to say, just read about the Green Bay defense. Little contrast from what we were thinking. Maybe run defense makes up the difference. That, and again, the turnovers is huge. It's absolutely huge. So, and that's the other thing too, like rallying to the football. We've done pretty good at punching the ball out, right, and causing fumbles as well. I don't know where we rank there, but it seems like we've been more aware of that this year under Hafley. If a guy's playing man coverage, his back's to the play. The play could have been thrown to the opposite side of the field, and he's still covering his guy, and his guy is kind of walking his route, what they call walking the route out. You're taking your guy to the play without even touching him. As we're in zone, you're focused on the ball and your work. Okay, the ball goes over there. You're immediately rallying to the football. It's much more difficult to rally to the football in that regard, too. I'd like to see the yak yardage, too, with man coverage as opposed to zone. I bet it's it's quite the difference as well. But, again, there's pros and cons to each defense. You got to key in on what the priority is. And again, the most important aspect of every game is turnover differential, right? Turnover differential is what sways the pendulum the most in any specific game. And this first matchup with the Minnesota Vikings, we lost the turnover differential 4-3, and we ended up losing the game by 2 points. So imagine if we had won the turnover differential 4-3. You think we would have gotten another field goal somehow, some way? Oh, by the way, we missed 2 field goals in that game too. So that's something that, when I say fixed, I don't mean McManus is going to be 100%. Listen, guys, I'm going to say the bad part out loud right now. He's due to miss a field goal or two. And when it happens, let's don't act like the world is ending, okay? Because where it sits right now, I guarantee you he's top 5 in field goal percentage this year. I'm going to go look it up because he's only missed 1 field goal. I want to say he's like 16 of 17 or something like on field goals. So
we giving away free kicker talk again, man?
Yeah,
you gotta get them super chats for kicker talk.
It's just like Emilio and his free advertising, man. We got to stop doing it. Got to stop doing this. I'm going to go pull up the kicker statistics. I want to see where McManus ranks. But if you want to hit on something else here in the chat, Tim, anything at all? Look, AFAM says, Clayton, no. I just want to know, okay? And then we'll keep this party moving. But continue here with the chat if you want to, Tim. I'm going to go look that up real quick. It won't take a second, I'm sure. So
I just think when it comes to, like you're saying with McManus, I'm kind of with Biz right here. We're not missing 2 crucial field goals this time inside that dome. I love it. And, I just like the attitude of, it's happened. We've had a game winner from him. His welcome to Green Bay game. We'll never forget that. But this is a different team right now. And we're playing football that is not going to require us to, lean on the kicking game as much. I'm not saying we don't need McManus because we clearly do. But I like getting tutters, and I like being in a situation where, maybe he does miss one. So what? It's not going to ruin the game for us if we're putting touchdowns on the board on offense and we're creating turnovers on defense. That's how we win ball games. But I think you're right. I mean, you look at the stats. Look at the year Justin Tucker's had, for crying out loud. I mean, the guy, arguably the best kicker in the NFL, and he's kicking like a rookie this year. So. Right. Anybody can get the yips at any time. So there is some logic to it. Hey, Chris N, super chat. There it goes. All right, we're good. $1 a minute. Two more minutes of kicker talk. Let's go.
Here we go. Asking you shall receive, Chris. Appreciate the super chat, sir. All right, so here it is, guys. Keep in mind the only kicker in the league that's made 100% of his kick, right, is Jude Micatamney. I hope I'm saying that right. Micatamney. He's only attempted 1 field goal and he hit it. All right, so throw that one out, obviously. First in the league, we should say, Nick Folk has 22 attempts and he's made 21. He's sitting at 95.5% field goal percentage, right? Guess who number 2 is, Tim? Brandon McManus. All right, he's sitting at 94.1. He has hit 16 of 17 and he has a long of 55. So, again, when you look at the field goal percentage, the more kicks, let's say he were to have kicked 34 kicks, right? And he missed 2. He and Nick Folk are going to be right there together. I mean, look at the guys who have kicked that many kicks and are right there with him, like Cameron Dicker for the LA Chargers. He's kicked 34 times, right? So that's a good comparison there. And he has missed 2 out of 33. He's legit a top 3 kicker, Brandon McManus is. So.
For sure.
Again, you go back to this Minnesota game, turnover differential. We're playing better in that regard with Jordan protecting the football better. Missed field goals, that's gotten fixed. Does it mean he would have hit both of those field goals that he missed? Probably not, Tim. I mean, there's a chance he's going to miss one of them, right? But and it looks like Minnesota, I don't see anywhere on my notes where Minnesota missed a field goal. They may have, but if he hits one of those 2 field goals, we win that game. That's another way of looking at it. Right. And again, the game gets called from that point on much different. So a lot of different things can happen. I'm not saying it's just like, hey, that was the only thing, but it was definitely a factor. And we talked about that in the moment as well. Like, hey, look, you can't just go, well, we lost by 2 points. Therefore, if we'd hit 1 field goal, we would have won. The game plays out much different. I got you. But you button up the turnover differential. If we can come out and win this turnover differential this game, you can control the explosives with that hardcore wide receiving core. And then, of course, the defensive penalties too, Tim. 4 defensive penalties on one drive that led to a touchdown for Minnesota. Like all those things, everything that could have gone wrong for the Packers went wrong for the Packers. Now, what's stacked against us this game? You got 3 key injuries on defense. That's going to play a role. And when you look at that, and everyone who's jumping on this over, and you guys know, I was almost like, man, why would we not take the under? I'm trying to dissect it, like reverse engineer it. And you look at it and you go, well, we are missing 3 starters. It is being played inside, right? Perfect conditions. Probably will be smarter to take the over. It's just something just grabbed my attention with that under. Like I feel like I would probably lean toward that under, especially if it continues to go up because all the money's going on the over, So
Right.
Anything else you want to hit on here with the kicker talk? That's awesome though, man. You got to listen, re-sign that dude. Let's re-sign that guy, man. Let's get him on a 3-year deal.
Yep.
And one that we can get out of in 2 years in case he does go cold. You can get out from under it, but give me a 3-year deal for Brandon McManus. Let's put this kicker talk behind us. Unless, of course, someone like Chris Ann throws up a super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. So, all right, there's your kicker talk segment for the morning. Let's move it along here, and let's jump into the I need to put a tweet out on that kicker talk for sure, man. Probably should have pulled that back up and did that real quick. I may do that here in a second while we're live on the air. Live tweeting during the show is not a good idea, though. Let's go to the PFF preview. We kind of hit on it a little bit yesterday as we wrap the show up. And let's see what sticks out to us. Now, the line is holding steady like we talked about with Minnesota being 1.5-point favorites. PFF actually has it further in Minnesota's favor at 2.2-point favorites. So keep that in mind. They actually think that Minnesota should be 2-point favorites as opposed to 1. We kind of talked about the money and everything already. We won't dive too much into that. I just like to kind of keep our finger on the pulse here with the gambling aspect. When you look at the PFF grades for the players who are going to be out for each team, I wish we could zoom in a little bit more here. That's about the best I can do. Jair Alexander, obviously out. He's the highest graded player that the Packers are going to be missing, a 75.2. Andre Dillard is grading out a 72.7, but we know those are very, very limited snaps for Andre Dillard. Christian Watson is questionable. He's now up to a 70.6, Tim. Solid year there for Christian Watson. Quay Walker out with the leg injury, 57.5 is his PFF grade. And, of course, Marshawn Lloyd with the torso injury. He's still on the NFIR, if I understood correctly. 53.3 is his PFF grade.
Torso, that's the appendicitis, though, right?
Right, yeah,
that's
sure.
Not like a broken rib or, something crazy like that. He's probably still just recovering, I would think, from that surgery. Man, it would be great to see him on the field at some point, but I think we might be waiting till next year for that.
Yeah, it does feel that way for sure. Now, maybe you get him back for the playoffs, but I'll tell you, man, Emmanuel Wilson grading out as like the 8th or 9th best running back in the league.
Yeah, you don't take the ball out of his hands in the postseason. Yeah.
And that's why you just, hey, let's don't get crazy with Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is
the way Chris Brooks has been playing lately too, right?
He's grading out over a 70. Yeah. So just a solid back for sure. Let's go to the Vikings side. Christian Darrisaw, so he is on IR, so they are missing Christian Darrisaw. I want to say they made a move for a tackle. I could be wrong. I think they traded for a tackle as soon as he went on IR and kind of button that up. We'll hit on that here in a second. Foster Moreau with cornerback with the leg injury, he's out. He graded out a 63.1. And then whoever this is, Tyamani, I think I'm saying that right, defensive lineman with the leg injury, he's on IR with a 61.2 was his PFF grade. So let's just jump into the lineups here. Go ahead and throw any of those you got marked up on the screen, Tim. We'll hit them in real time, bro. Any of those chats at all. We'll go full screen with this as we do it.
Oh, cool. Let's see.
I see you marking them. I just didn't want to move off the topic and then, we miss them. So you just keep them firing there as they come in, man. Just cut me off and we'll hit them. We'll hit on them.
Shout out to Mart84. Want to thank PTA. I was one of the more miserable fans, always complaining. PTA gave me a way more positive view on the whole team. Go Pack Go. And thanks from Germany, all the way from Deutschland. Look at that. Thanks, Mart.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words there, man. Thanks for tuning in. We got to get the map going. Me and Emilio and Tim have talked about this a lot. We're going to get an interactive map where we can put a pin everywhere people are watching the show from. We got people from all over. I mean, I'm talking about China, Japan. We've got people, obviously, in Canada. We got people in South America, obviously Germany.
You got Omer in France.
Yeah. Omer holding it down in France, usually pissed off about something, but he's holding it down in France. That's all that matters, right? But yeah, hey, thank you so much. And again, it's not that any of us don't complain or get mad. Like I've talked about, you watch me watch a game live, you think I'm a different person. But it's just understanding what happened and why did it happen, as opposed to just let's be overly emotional and pretend like something happened that actually didn't. Yep. That's the stuff that drives me crazy. So, all right, let's look at this Vikings offense, man. They are stout, Tim. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, one of the best in the business at an 89.9 at wide receiver. Opposite him is Jordan Addison at a 74.2. He's graded out as the 34th best receiver. And then you got Naylor there in the slot, 55.9. So now keep in mind, they've got him listed as a slot, but KOC likes to move Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison around where they'll end up in the slot. What we mean by that is if at any point either of those guys can play what we refer to as F receiver in Matt LaFleur's offense, you can motion those dudes in, and next thing you know, they're lined up in the slot. And if you're in man coverage, boy, watch out. Hold on to your britches, right? It's about to get real because you got a lot of movement going on. Here's the offensive lineman that I was thinking of, Tim.
Here's the guy.
I want to say they traded for Cam Robinson. I'm almost positive they traded for him. But listen, 64.1 stepping in for an injured, one of the best in the game. That's a pretty solid performance in my opinion. Anytime you're hovering around 65, you're kind of doing your job. You may not be doing it great, but you're not a true liability to the team. So Cam Robinson at left tackle was filling in for Darisaw. Obviously, they still got O'Neal at right tackle, one of the best in the business. Brian O'Neal grading out at 81.9. That's the second highest grade of his career as it sits right now. So they're solid at tackle, although Cam Robinson's going to get tested. And this is what I can't remember who it was that mentioned it just a second ago, but their guards are weak. You got Blake Brandel at left guard. He's a 57.4. And again, this is if PFF has this up to date. We're just going to assume they do. And then you got Dalton Reisner at right guard at a 63.9. Not horrible, but again, definitely one of the weaker spots on this offensive line. They got Bradbury at center and Garrett Bradbury grading out as a 63.2. That's one of those guys that's just been solid his whole career. I mean, like not great, not even really very good, just kind of above average, solid, 61.4, 62 or 60.2, 67.5, 60.9, and a 63.2. So the offensive line here, Tim, I don't look at their offensive line and go, oh yeah, we're going to eat. Maybe I'm wrong. I think they're going to come ready to protect Sam Darnold. You just got to make sure you play fundamentally sound here.
Absolutely. They're stout. They are stout up front and nothing to be intimidated by, but yeah, we've got to play mistake-free football against this Vikings offense.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Definitely. All right. Sam Darnold, again, 86.0, the sixth highest graded quarterback in the league. One of these don't belong here. Right? Look at these grades. 64.7, 63.6, 58.4, 54.7, 63.0, 66.0, 86.0. When we talk about a quarterback-friendly offense, we're always mentioning Kyle Shanahan's tree, Sean McVay's tree. In this case, it's KOC specifically, Kevin O'Connell. Boy, oh boy, did he bring the best out of Sam Darnold. One of two things are going to happen next year, Tim. Either Sam Darnold is going to be signed to a 2-year extension, and that's going to bridge the gap to J.J. McCarthy, or Sam Darnold is going to make absolute bank in free agency if he hits the market. This type of performance right here, you're talking about MVP top numbers this year. Like he is just absolutely blown up this year. If I was a Vikings fan, Tim, I'd look at this and go, man, I would want Sam Darnold back for a couple years to show J.J. McCarthy firsthand for a couple of years. Here's how you're supposed to play this quarterback position within this offense. It's just amazing how someone can go from a different offense looking like absolute cheeks into one and looking like an MVP candidate. It's wild.
Yeah, man. I had a feeling when McCarthy went down, Darnold stepping into that role, I said it all along that this might be bad news for Packer fans. And it's proven that way. It's been bad news for the NFC this year. He is, lights out. You're right. Look at the career grades and just the gigantic strides once he's in the right system. And it's a guy that will make mistakes, but not very often. You've really got to be on point when you're facing a quarterback like this. And I would agree when you look at the numbers, man, there would be a legit gripe for Vikings fans to say that they may have a an MVP candidate, as quarterback. But I just think, this is probably Josh Allen's year when it comes to the MVP conversation. But yeah, we got to take this guy seriously, and this defense has got to be aware of all aspects of what he's bringing to the table, because he is, kind of like an average looking quarterback on the surface, but he's dynamic in the pass game and in the run game.
Yeah. AFAM says the dome helps too for the California guy. That's a great point. Playing in New York for so long up in that bad weather. That's a great point, AFAM. Ron Samble says projected 3-year, $41 million per year with $70 million guaranteed. And this is what I mean by the 2-year deal. Think of it this way. If you sign him to, let's say you give him that money, right? Let's say you give him $70 million guaranteed over 3 years, right? Fully guaranteed, averaging $41 million per. You give him that contract, you can get out of it after the 3rd year, which means you're only going to pay him $35 million per year for the 2 years he was here, because that's the true guarantee. That's how that works. You could also give him that 3-year deal with 2 voidable years tacked on, spread that cap hit out. And then after 2 years, if you're ready to move on to J.J. McCarthy, you cut bait with Sam Darnold, absorb the cap hit because you got J.J. McCarthy on that rookie deal. Like, that's why this is doable. People see that number go, the Vikings can't do that. Yes, they can. Watch. Watch them do it. Now, the question is, are they going to be overly impressed with J.J. McCarthy to where they go, no, we don't need to do that. We're ready to move on to J.J. McCarthy. That's a real thing too, right? I'm not comparing J.J. McCarthy to Pat Mahomes. They are 2 totally different quarterbacks. Stylistically, there's nothing that suggests J.J. McCarthy is going to be on the level of someone like a Pat Mahomes. But you guys remember, I think it was Alex Smith was an MVP candidate, right? The Pat Mahomes' rookie year. And everybody was like, oh, boy, they're going to have to keep, they're going to have to keep Alex Smith. He was solid. And they just let his butt go. And Pat Mahomes steps right in and takes off, right? That could be a realistic thing, too. They've done a good job. One thing I will say about Minnesota's front office, Tim, they've done one hell of a job. And when they recognize a hole, they'll go fill it real quick.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
So you gotta tip your cap to that. They did it with Aaron Jones, right? They really did.
Yeah,
so,
that's why that happened so quickly, right? Quick and decisive.
Yeah. And again, though, to defend Goody here a minute, if you look at Aaron Jones's numbers, 2022, 86.1, 2023, 80.9, this year, 74.8. You can't see it because of the comment, my bad. Thank you for looking up that info, Ron. You're the man. So he's declined, according to PFF, the last 3 years. Now, he's still averaging over 4 yards a carry. He's still effective. Don't get me wrong. He's a stud still. But you're seeing that decline, and you know how Goody operates, man. Get rid of him 1 year before before you need to, right? You'd rather cut bait 1 year too early than 1 year too late, I think is the way everybody says it. So Aaron Jones. Now here's the other factor. TJ Hawkinson, the guy that didn't they pick him up from Detroit? Am I thinking right, Tim? They traded for
I believe
him.
So, yeah.
They ended up getting him from Detroit, and everybody rolled their eyes, man. He's been solid. 2022, 73.2, 2023, 78.8, 2024, 75.5. He's the 9th highest graded tight end in the league. What's crazy is Tucker Kraft is leading him in several different tight end statistical categories. So it's pretty cool that you see our young tight end who's making, I don't know, a cool 1.2 million, going to 1.5 million, I think, next year, or it might even be in the 3rd year. You're getting him pennies on the dollars for someone who's having just as much results in the passing game for sure. But TJ Hawkinson's a dog, man. You just got a lot of weapons you got to cover here. And that's why I'm like, stay the hell away from man coverage for the Lord's sake. Let's keep our eyes on the football. Let's try to make Sam Darnold make mistakes. 4-man pressure. We know he cuts us up with pressure.
Can you pull that back up for Hawkinson?
Yeah.
You're right, because we know he's a weapon in the pass game, right? Look at that run block grade. That ain't no Tuck Norris level run blocking. So they're not using TJ Hawkinson for anything more than maybe the occasional chip or something, right? And he's running a route, so we've got to account for him out there.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, for those of you listening on the pod, that's going to do it for hour 1. We will see you on the other side for hour 2. We appreciate y'all. All right, let's keep this train moving here. Hour 2, let's continue to dive into this Packers-Vikings matchup. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Hit that like button if you don't care. Feel free to sub to the channel. We appreciate y'all making us a part of your morning here as we're dissecting this whole thing. Let's look at the Packers defensive side of the ball here, and hopefully all these guys will be on the field. I'm trying to get a glance to see if PFF may have overlooked something because sometimes they do throw things a little wonky. They got
look, there's the nickel personnel I was looking for here.
This is what they suggest. And again, this is because PFF has Zane Anderson graded so high, right? Some people see this and they roll their eyes. I love it. Again, it's so rare that you see a player grade out that high and then all of a sudden they just revert back to being absolutely horrible, right? Or, not even a starting caliber player. I'm with you, Tim. If Bullard plays, this is the direction I'm leaning because if you go opposite of this and you put Bullard in Zane Anderson's place, we know Nixon plays worse in the slot than he does on the outside, right? Maybe it's not too much of a difference, but I think we would all agree that it seems like Nixon is more comfortable on the outside than he is on the inside. Now, if you can call a nickel fire every play, yeah, he's good to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he is, in my opinion, our best slot defender. But I think he is better at playing the slot than Bullard is. I truly believe that. But the issue is Nixon has played on the outside better than the slot. So if you put Bullard in the slot, Nixon on the outside, Valentine on the opposite side, and you keep Zane Anderson in there at safety, man, along with McKinney. What if Zane Anderson, Tim, what if they go with this look as Zane Anderson comes out Sunday and just balls out, grades out in the 80s again?
That's what we want to see. Let's go. I hope he does. I hope he keeps performing well because none of us were, I think, expecting or prepared for that.
I know I wasn't.
Yeah. I think we saw him as a special team guy, right? A Rich Bisaccia guy, hard player, plays hard. But I was not prepared for him playing at the level he's been playing at, opposite of McKinney back there as a safety. And with Evan Williams going down and, we may have a bona fide backup right there for him. I think we've talked about him coming down in the box a few times. We've got that on tape against New Orleans. But I don't know if Zane Anderson has that ability to play both safety and slot corner. I think Bullard does. And I think Nixon's got the versatility, like you talked about, between slot and boundary. But if you take Zane Anderson out of this lineup, where else does he go on the field? I don't think he does. If you got Bullard back there at safety, then you're looking at Eric Stokes Jr. as your starting boundary corner in the nickel. And I just think this lineup right here looks a little bit more advantageous for our defense.
Yeah, I agree. And many people were already saying, hey, will Zane be back next year? Will Zane be back next year? Unfortunately, he's an unrestricted free agent. So Goody and them is going to have to make a decision. What's the number we put on him? He made $1 million this year. Okay, that's what his salary cap hit is, against the cap, against the, as far as the accounting aspect goes with the Packers. Will he drive up the market in free agency? Not based off of one game, right? So it's I could see it being something, Tim, that if he balls out the rest of the year, we end up bringing him back on a contract similar to what Keyshawn got.
Oh yeah,
average 6 year, $5 to $6 million per year, with the first year being much lower at $3 to $4 million a hit. But
there's got to be a reason we haven't seen KT Oladapo thrown into the mix back there.
This makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yep,
it does. Because we were all like, man, where's Ola Home Depot at? Sounds like Zane Anderson been balling out in practice. And you guys remember in camp, I believe it was, he was actually, everybody was joking. Is he a real person? I didn't know he's a real person. He's talking about him picking passes off and everything. Yep. It sounds like he is definitely leapfrogged Oladapo. And that's the other thing too. Like you've got your starters. We all would agree that it's going to be Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams as your starting safeties when Evan's healthy, right? So you look at how your safety room is built. You got Katana Oladapo, 3 years left on his deal after this year, right? So you've got him. He's obviously the future is what you're looking at, at the safety position. You got Omar Brown, who's sitting on the practice squad, who probably get reset to a 2-year deal with the futures contract. So your safety room, you got Javon Bullard, obviously, who's going to be able to play safety if you get a little banged up. You're going into the offseason, you don't have to re-sign Zane Anderson. You don't have to overpay for that. But again, if the market isn't there, why not bring him back? He's 27 years old, so you got a couple of years before he kind of hits that wall we always talk about, right? So there you go. Prince just pointed out Zane turns 28 next month. So, yeah, you don't want to overpay for good. You'll overpay for great, but you don't want to overpay for good, and you damn sure don't want to overpay for good when your safety room is already looking pretty good, And it does seem like we have fixed that this year.
That's what makes Goody such a genius, right? I mean, this is the type of position you want to be in. You're right. We absolutely don't have to feel like we need to sign Zane Anderson again, right? But we could.
Right.
We could.
Right.
I mean, you talk about Williams, you talk about Bullard, we talk about Oladapo, Omar Brown, all these guys on rookie deals that we don't have to worry about immediately right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a possibility. The thing I'm not prepared for with him being, you said he's unrestricted free agent, right? Zane?
That is correct. Yeah, he'll hit the market.
If he balls his ass off these next few games, I think it's a pretty good chance he's gone in free agency. Someone will probably snatch him up, you know.
One thing about it, Zane is looking at this like, boy, this, you don't wish for a teammate to get hurt, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he's getting significant playing time going into his free agent year is huge. It's absolutely huge.
It is.
To be able to kind of audition to a team, hey, look, I can give you a stopgap for a couple years, you know.
Yeah. And it's nice for us to be in this position, you know, with Williams being out. We don't have to sit here and play musical chairs, you know, at the safety spot and start moving guys around and, hey, who can play back there? Let's grab one of these rookies that's not ready and throw them into the fire as we make a playoff push. I mean, we've seen the Packers of days past with terrible secondaries and having to just constantly move guys around into places that they're not comfortable. This gives us the advantage that, you know, we got guys that we can put in spots to be successful. You know, you've talked about Coach Hafley doing that, wanting guys to play where they feel comfortable and being able to do the things that they're good at in their game. And I think Zane Anderson stepping up is just right place, right time, and we need it, right? Great timing.
Yeah, Ron Sample makes a great point here. He says, I'm not really comfortable with Bullard in the slot against this team, just my opinion. Here's the thing. Javon Bullard, 53.7, right? You know, you guys know I haven't been like on the table for Bullard this year. Like, he's having a great year. I don't think he's having a great year. I always try to point out what players can do as opposed to what they can't do. He's a solid run defender. It gives you it's almost like an extra edge defender there when you're playing your nickel against the run, where a lot of teams like to run out of 11 personnel. That's his strength. Coverage is not his strength at the NFL level yet. It may take some time. So I completely understand where you're coming from here, Ron. Now the question becomes, who would you rather have on the field at this moment? Would you rather kick Nixon to the slot? Okay. And obviously we've talked about it, that Nixon has played better on the boundary this year. But if you kick him to the slot, then it comes down to, who would you rather have on the field, Stokes or Bullard, right? Stokes is coming off of his two best games. Tim, we've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
So if your argument, Ron, is let's don't play Bullard, he's banged up, let's put Nixon in the slot, put Stokes on the outside because Stokes is, you know, on a heater right now, I can't argue with that. I don't think that's a horrible move either, because the reality is Bullard has not been great. He's not been great in coverage. He hasn't. Now, the fact that a rookie is playing that many snaps, you want to see him crack that 60 mark on PFF. That's kind of that indicator that, hey, this dude is the real deal. You know, as a rookie, he's going to be able to compete. He's going to get better. That's typically the gauge you use. But, you know, when you face a team like the Vikings, and this is what Ron was saying, like this matchup here specifically, the Vikings throw the ball 58% of the time. So if you're going to be throwing the ball more, you're not maximizing that player in the slot's ability to stop the run, right? It doesn't mean they're not going to run the ball, especially if they jump up to an early lead. But just kind of thinking out loud here, I can understand where Ron's coming from there, Tim.
I think the Packers are thinking the same thing too. And, you know, we're talking about one other glaringly obvious fact that we've kind of forgot about is Bullard's coming off of injury. So, you know, if they throw him in a lineup and he starts in the slot and he gets cooked, I mean, you watch how quick Keyshawn's into the slot, Stokes is on the boundary, Anderson stays back there, and Bullard's on the sideline. That could be a realistic possibility against a team like Minnesota, who we know can move the ball through the air. Because you're right. I mean, Bullard's strength is that downhill hammer in the run game, you know. So if he's getting cooked in the slot, you know, I could see them without hesitation making a change, especially the way Stokes has been playing. Like you said, coming off his best two games, I don't think they'd hesitate at all to just put him out on the field, move Keyshawn into that slot.
Yeah. On a separate tab here, I pulled up Eric Stokes' grade. He's up to a 61.5 now this year, according to PFF. He's the 110th graded cornerback out of 217. His coverage grade is a 62.8. That, in terms of coverage grade, 93rd best corner out of 217. So he's a legit top 100 corner.
So he's he's grading high, probably as high as he ever has in his career, other than his rookie year, right?
I think so. Yeah. I was trying to. They changed everything up here to where they make it really difficult to see the players' rankings over their career unless you're looking at the screen that we were looking at with the preview here. They tried to make it more sleek, and me being the get off my lawn guy, every time somebody changes something, I want to pull my damn hair out. It's like, you guys had it right. Please stop changing things. But I was trying to look at him in preview. Yeah, let's see here in premium stats. I know you guys can't see this, but I'll read it off to you. So his PFF grades this year, let's just go back his last 5 weeks. Okay, Tim, let's start in week 12. 47.8, 69.7, 60.1, 77.8, 80.6. So 80.6, hands down, his highest graded game of the year, no doubt about it. His overall grades throughout his career, you were right. Rookie year, 65.5. 2022, 53.7. 2023 is a 51.5. And then this year, a 61.5. So he's definitely playing his best ball since his rookie year. So, if you were to just say, all right, PFF's everything, and we're not saying that, please don't send any hateful emails to me, okay? You guys know how we feel about this. But he's definitely grading out significantly higher than Javon Bullard this year. So if Keyshawn can handle the slot, and again, we showed you the slot wide receiver for the Vikings, Naylor. Listen, he's not a world beater. He's one of the worst receivers in the league that meets the minimum requirements here. But it's just that motion they like to use with Addison and Jefferson to get them in that slot position there. That's going to make things interesting.
Yeah, and don't think for a second that they wouldn't flex Jefferson into the slot just to cook, a rookie slot corner.
Right.
They would take that opportunity. I wouldn't put it past them.
And what you're pointing out here, Tim, obviously with Javon Bullard, he's listed as questionable, right?
Yeah, we don't even know for sure if he's going to go.
Yeah. And again, if you're the coaching staff and you look at this going, man, Stokes has got some serious momentum. Is this the week that we put Keyshawn in the slot, put Stokes on the outside, let Bullard rest another week? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That's probably what we'll see, to be honest with you.
We talk about the hot hand, right? Like if Stokes is catching fire here, do you want to kill that momentum? Yeah. I want to get the best ball out of this guy we can, especially since it's not a guarantee that he's going to be a Packer next year. Yeah. Probably more than likely that he's not.
You also got to take into consideration too, man. You're one injury away. If somebody gets banged up, they twist an ankle and they're going to miss the rest of the game. Who is the next safety to come in, right? And how does that upset the cart? Does Bullard kick out if he is playing, right? Let's say Anderson gets banged up and he has to come out of the game. You throw Bullard up there, then who's the cornerback that's coming in? It's going to be Stokes, right? Yep. If Bullard is not playing and you got Keyshawn in the slot already, Stokes on the outside, who's that other safety that steps in? It's got to be Oladapo, right? Got to be.
I would think. Otherwise, we're playing the game that we just said we don't want to play, right? We're talking about, do we move Keyshawn back there, right? Do we bring in Ballantyne and have Ballantyne play the slot or play on the boundary? Do you move Key to the safety position? Do you move Zane down into the slot? Do we start experimenting in real time against the Vikings? I'm not looking for that. I'd rather lean on our trusted guys, Yeah,
it could be something too. If Bullard's activated, right, and he's going to be active on Sunday, don't start him. Have him kind of waiting. You know what I mean? And in case you get into trouble, hey, you could pop him in. And who knows, you jump out to a 1 or a 2 score lead and you got everything in hand. You can kind of not try to, push him too far there with the injury. Prince in the chat says 3 p.m. We should see if Omar Brown is called up again. And if he is called up, pretty good indication, I would imagine, that our boy Javon Bullard is not going to be active. I could see that happening for sure.
Yep,
so thank you for that, Prince. We'll keep an eye on that as the day goes along. Let's shift our focus to the front four here. Rashawn Gary, 73.3 is the highest graded defensive lineman here on the team. They've got Kingsley Nigbare opposite of Rashawn Gary at a 62.0. You guys know LVN seems to have taken that starting role opposite of Rashawn Gary, but there is a heavy rotation. So you're going to continue to see Brenton Cox Jr. as well. I'm going to pull up in a separate tab here and see what Brenton Cox Jr.'s grades are and kind of get an idea of where he's at right now because I think he's playing his best ball. I think we would all agree. And if you look at the premium stats right now, he's up to a 75.3 in 2024. He's now had 2 games where he graded we'll just call it an 80 because it's a 79.9 in week 12 against the 49ers. And then in week 16, this past week against New Orleans, at 88.7. Been solid this year, man. Since week 11, he's gotten significant snaps. When you look at his total snaps, 10, starting week 11, 22, 22, 20, 21, 20, 26 in week 16. So Brenton Cox Jr., if you were going strictly off a grade, and I like that PFF doesn't do that because it does kind of mislead people into thinking, oh, he's the starter when he's probably not. They're probably going off a combination of grade and snap count, and we know Enagbari's played a lot of football this year. But boy, Brenton Cox Jr. opposite of Rashawn Gary ain't too far away, man. I could see that. If he continues what he did last week and the week before, he could end up winning that job opposite. Now, here's the thing, too. LVN, now he's closing in on 12% pressure rate. That dude's playing his best ball right now, too, which is wild to think about.
This makes the Preston Smith trade to Pittsburgh look even better, right? I mean, seriously, if you don't have faith in this front office, I don't know what you're watching, because that was a move that benefited both Preston Smith personally and professionally, and it certainly benefited the Green Bay Packers and these young edge guys that we have. That you're right, they got to see the field. They do. And having a lot of talent and trying to find out how to get them all on the field is a good problem to have. And it's even better when all these guys are starting to pop and they're starting to do more than flash. We always talk about young players flashing. Brenton Cox Jr. and LVN are starting to creep up, man, right where we want them to be.
And again, LVN's PFF grade this year is only a 53, but keep in mind, like, the improvement throughout the year. Let's just start.
He's trending upwards, right? We're not there yet, but we're on the right path.
He hit his ceiling in week 12 against the Niners, 82.9. His lowest game of the year was week 6, where he was a 30. So you've seen that improvement. And then since that 82.9, he's graded out starting in week 13, 68.9, 68.4, 61.8, 61. So you're seeing the floor has been raised for LVN. You got a ceiling of 82.9. You got a floor of 30. But if you go over the last 5 games, that floor is now a 61. So you're seeing that improvement for sure in his game the more reps he gets. And when you look at his reps, I don't know if he got banged up against New Orleans, or maybe they took him out because it was a blowout and they wanted to see a little more of Brenton Cox Jr. on the field. But his snap count over the last 4 games is 22, 35, 25, 18. I'd say it has something to do with that, the fact that they were blowing him out. But again, play the hot hand, man,
Yep.
So
absolutely. It's like Emilio's hockey line quote, right? You got to try and switch these guys and rotate. And, I'm pretty sure snap counts they're looking at post game, right? They're probably not looking at that super close during the game. I think they're worried more about, what they're trying to execute. And, you see personnel, sometimes a guy will wave himself off, right? You get popped, or you're, a little out of breath or something, get shaken up. Sometimes you're waving towards the sideline. So I don't think there's anyone standing there going, no, you have to stay on the field. You need your 11th snap. I don't think they're looking at that. They're probably looking at snap counts, maybe at half, and then probably for sure after the game. You'll see LaFleur asked about that a lot in his post-game pressers. And a lot of times he's like, yeah, I don't have those numbers in front of me yet. I'm sure that's something that they're kind of looking at after the fact. But it is cool to see, the fluctuation, because there are games when guys, especially when you're talking about, LVN, Cox, and Enagbari, you'll see the fluctuation in their snap counts. But, the fact of the matter is they need to see the field. So I don't care if they fluctuate in their snap totals, as long as they're on that field and put in a place where they have a chance to be successful. And we're seeing that right now.
Yeah. And with Enagbari, it's worth mentioning, listen, his PFF grades is 62. He started off strong. In week 3, 92.9. In week 5, 84.4, right? And, you got some 40s and 30s in between. But again, if we just go recent bias right here, you've got the last 5 games, his floor is a 49.9 and his ceiling is a 70.7 over the last 5 games. So for what it's worth, the hot hand right now is definitely Brenton Cox Jr. The steady hand is Lucas Van Ness over the last 5 games. Kingsley seems to have cooled off a little bit here down the stretch.
Can we talk about him for a second?
Who's that?
Kingsley Enagbari, because I don't know if I'm maybe reading into this wrong, but he's kind of been a penalty issue these past few weeks.
Let's look at that, man. Yeah, I think you're right. Let's
am I off base there? It seems like they're, when it comes to those edge guys, that's the guy that's getting flags thrown on him probably the most of the edge group.
He's got 6 on the year so far. Okay. So he's got 6 penalties. LVN has 5 penalties, and Brenton Cox Jr., obviously playing far fewer snaps, has 1 penalty.
Okay.
So, I mean, honestly, though, if you averaged it out and you doubled, hell, even tripled Brenton Cox Jr.'s penalties, all you'd have to do is double to get the same amount of games played. Brenton Cox Jr., the guy that we talk about as the most undisciplined of the pass rushers, actually been the one with the least amount of penalties.
Crazy.
And that's between Enigbare, LVN, and Brenton Cox Jr. So, yeah, man, that's a great point, Tim. He's definitely, and that's probably why his PFF grade is kind of hovering a little lower,
Yeah.
But it's because the penalty. I'm pretty sure they penalize pretty harshly. I've been told multiple things, and of course PFF won't talk to you about it. They're just, hey, no, we ain't going to show you our recipe. So
right.
It's interesting how that.
And I think we can probably snag 1 or 2 of those penalties away from Enigbare just with the ticky tack factor, right? The old questionable call factor. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of times with him, it's the that whatever that is, the roughing the passer, the phantom roughing the passer call or something like that.
Right.
I don't want to pick on JJ Enigbare, but I do. I'm glad you pulled that up because I had a feeling he was the most penalized of our edge guys. So hopefully he tightens up, man, going forward.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's look at the linebackers, man. This has been what a pleasant surprise here with Edgerrin Cooper. Obviously, when you look at the projected starting lineup for this game, you got our boy Edgerrin Cooper, an 80.0, the 6th highest graded linebacker in the league. And then, of course, you've got Eric Wilson, who will probably be wearing the green dot again, I would imagine, a 68.3. He's graded now as a 29th best linebacker. I just pulled Isaiah McDuffie up on a separate window here. His PFF grade this year is a 56.5. I mean, his entire career, 60, 58.6, 57.1, 56.5. So we know what he is, right? We know what Zay McDuffie is. If you look at the last 5 games, he has peaked at a 64, and his floor is a 55. So you're not going to get like crazy high, crazy low. You kind of know what you got. But, man, Edgerrin Cooper, holy cow, Tim. This dude, buddy. He is something else, man.
I'll tell you what Zay McDuffie is. Zay McDuffie is probably not a Packer after this year.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. And the fact that he can contribute on special teams too is obviously going to give you a lot more value there as well. I'm going to pull up Tyron Hopper real quick too. You go ahead. Any comments you got? I'm going to see.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I'm not saying that as a knock on Zay McDuffie. Anyone who's followed our show in the last year or so knows that I'm a huge Zay McDuffie fan. I like the way that he plays football. I really do. I like the way he approaches the game. He's a thumper. He really is. But he's not as versatile as some of our other linebackers. And I also think the absolute explosion of Edgerrin Cooper, and then the Tyron Hopper effect, if we can get him taking the steps he needs to get to that next level and be a rotational guy. And, we look at Quay, maybe he can, heal up and continue to play good football. Because let's be real, before the injury, Quay was playing his best ball. And, we have a potential for a really fast, aggressive, physical, young linebacking core. And I just think, if you look at the contracts, if you're going to bring any of our, older or more veteran type linebackers back, I think you do. I think you do a 1 or 2 year deal to a guy like Eric Wilson before you try and bring, Zay McDuffie back. I think Zay McDuffie would probably command a decent contract on the market. And I don't think the Packers are going to exceed that. They may match an offer and give him the option to stay, but I don't know. I don't see the Packers being super aggressive pursuing McDuffie in free agency. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. Yeah.
And Quay Walker, just to hit on him real quick, his season-long grade, 57.5. So throughout his career, and this is why there's some people that try to downgrade what Edgerrin Cooper's doing, and they're like, well, Quay did that his rookie year. No, he didn't. Quay was a 52 his rookie year. He went up to a 58.7 last year, a 57.5 in 2024. Now, to Tim's point, playing some of his best ball here of lately, his last 5 games, he graded out a 62.6, 91.4, 91.4, 68.5, 62.2, and then against Seattle, a 44.2. But keep in mind, we've seen him dragging that leg on a couple plays. So it's like he was playing. Obviously, something happened with that ankle, and he still got in a play or two after that. So he didn't play his best game against Seattle. So over the last 5 games, his floor would be a 44.2, but his ceiling's a 91.4. So again, Edgerrin Cooper, though, I will mention, Quay may have, I think he tied or set the Packers' rookie tackle record. There's a difference in depth of tackle, right?
Right.
And, like when you look at actual run stops as opposed to just tackles, Edgerrin Cooper's an absolute menace, man. He is something else. So, going to be interesting to see what they do there next year in terms of how they attack the linebacking room. Obviously, Quay Walker's going to be back next year. He's under contract. Will they pick up the 5th-year option on him and why? That's going to be the big question. We've talked about that all year long. But yeah, Tim, that 91, man, he looked like he just looked like he was being decisive in that game. He really did.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about with Quay, right? Like let him just play with his hair on fire. Let him just go out there and be, instinctive and just trust himself. Like you see that, especially in the run fits, really. We always know Quay's a good coverage guy, right? When it comes to, he's probably our best cover linebacker, honestly. Mm-hmm. But man, has he gotten better in the run fits and even in the pressures, right? We talked about him getting those, like Jacob always says, the happy feet. You instead of start, stop, shoot, you start, stop, shuffle your feet, right. And then you shoot. And then by the time you shoot, you're in the wrong gap and you're getting washed out of the play. We're seeing a lot less of that from Quay. We're seeing start, stop, shoot, trust it, go. And, we've seen sacks based off of the type of penetration that Quay has gotten on some of those looks. We've seen a Devontae Wyatt sack. We saw a Kenny Clark sack this year with Quay just being aggressive, trusting it, and going. That's how Cooper plays all the time, right? We see that. That guy just, every time he's on the field, plays like that. There's no hesitation. So I think maybe some of that is from that rookie season from Quay being thrown into the fire so quickly. Drake Campbell had the green dot that year, obviously, but, we put Quay on the field immediately as a rookie. And, I think that was a lot for him to process, especially in a semi-confusing Joe Barry defense that he had to play in where, guys were kind of going rogue and there was a little bit of confusion. There wasn't as much communication. There certainly wasn't an aggressive nature of rally to the ball carrier. It was more about, stay in your spot, remember your assignments, remember the variables. I think Hafley has kind of simplified things and he caters to his players' strengths and puts them in a place to be successful. And I think that's why you're seeing, here in year 3, you're seeing Quay with the steps forward towards that high ceiling that we know he has. It's just unfortunate with the injury, man. It really is.
Yeah. So when you look at Edgerrin Cooper, grade out of 80, week 1, 85.9, only 11 snaps. Think about this. Week 2, Indianapolis, only 7 snaps. Week 3 went to 18, 21, 30, 38, 41, 34, 38. Week 11, 51 snaps. Week 15, 34. And then week 16, 38. Now, when you look at his ceiling on the year, his highest graded game was against Seattle at a 93.8. His lowest graded game of the year was a 34.4. Okay.
Worth noting that the high grade in Seattle was also the highest in the National Football League, if I'm not mistaken, that week.
Correct. So you've got a floor season long rookie year for Edgerrin Cooper, a floor of 34.4, but a ceiling of 93.8. Now, again, that was the only game where he graded out in the 30s. He only had one game where he graded out in the 40s. So if you remove 2 of those 16 games that he has in his rookie campaign here, right, then his floor would be 53.9. His ceiling would be 93.8. Now, let's look over the last 5 weeks. How's he settling in the last 5 weeks? His floor is a 53.9 against Chicago there in week 11, and his ceiling is a 93.8. So this is what I'm talking about when I've heard people say, hey, Quay, he reminds me of Quay his rookie year. No, go back and watch the tape again. This is special. what Edgerrin Cooper's doing, man.
Yep.
It really is. And again, if you look at his overall grades on the year, defensively 80.0, run defense 66.9, tackle grades of 57.7, pass rush 90.1, and his coverage grade 76.4. According to PFF, his strengths are rushing the quarterback and playing coverage. What the hell? This is a different kind of animal. He can do it all. He can do it all for sure. So, and it's crazy too, because you see that tackle grade of 57.7, Tim. I don't watch the game and go, man, Edgerrin Cooper can't tackle. I just don't see that at all, bro. I don't know what they've seen on tape with the tackle grade.
Yeah, and I love what you said about like a run stop versus like, a tackle. You see guys all the time, they meet you right there, point of contact, and then, like you get your face ran through and it's another 3 yards, you're going backwards. You see Edgerrin Cooper, man, that man, he gets his hands on you. Your momentum is stopped. I think he's underrated as a tackler. And the coolest thing about Cooper is you see a rookie, I don't care what position you're in, they come out their rookie year like this and they play absolute balls to the wall, hair on fire football. There's a tendency to think, oh boy, here's that flash in the pan, right? Here's that great rookie year. Is he going to sustain this, next year and beyond in his career? And I think with Edgerrin Cooper, you have zero concern about that. This guy is legit. That's why some people are jumping the gun with the LT comparisons and all these things. It's because he just jumps off the tape. And when he's on the field, he's one of those guys that just looks like a beast among men. It looks like he's out there playing with a bunch of high schoolers or something. The game is just not too big for him. And he really does. He stands out on tape when he's on the field.
Yeah, I completely agree. Eric Wilson is taking kind of a downturn here. Okay. So started off the season. First of all, his highest graded game was only 8 snaps. It was against Indianapolis at 99.4. That's when he had that interception. And we started screaming, we need to get him more snaps. Yeah. So that's his highest graded game. His lowest graded game is a 38.6 in week 9 against Detroit. Okay. And we've seen that all over tape. He really struggled. If we go over to the last 5 game saturation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, his floor in the last 5 games is a 43.8. His ceiling is a 75.4. So that's why his PFF grade is now down to a 68.3. Now it is worth mentioning wearing that green dot. It matters, right? Like he took over wearing the green dot when Quay left in the Seattle game, right? He graded a 62.6. Last week was the first week where he wore the green dot, like for the full game, 51.6. I think there's something to that, Tim, that when you're wearing the green dot, it's not just about playing linebacker.
You got a big, gigantic bag full of other responsibilities, right?
Absolutely. Man.
You're analyzing protections. You're looking at adjustments pre-snap. You're looking at that offense and their sugar. You're trying to communicate to your other backers. You may even be leaning over your shoulder, looking at your secondary, trying to communicate with X on the back end. It's a lot of real-time moving pieces when you're wearing that green dot. I think that I'll be honest with you. I think there's as much or more pressure on a linebacker wearing a green dot as there is to a quarterback wearing a green dot.
Yeah, really. I don't think there's anything inaccurate about that, man, to be honest with you. Let's look at the defensive line real quick as we wrap up. Kenny Clark, 59.2. He's the 56th highest graded defensive lineman that meets the criteria. Devontae White, 64.3. He's 43rd. So, again, Kenny Clark having a down year. There's no doubt about it. We've seen him occupying double teams a lot. He's playing a lot of 1-tech. It's rare you see him in a 3-tech. And he's also doing a lot of that occupy the double team, play a little touch spy. So keep that in mind. That's definitely you're probably going to get a -2 if they're grading the tape the way I think PFF is grading the tape. They're going to see that touch spy and they're going to give him a -2 because it looks like, wow, he didn't even try to rush the quarterback. He's not trying to rush the quarterback, knucklehead. He's playing a touch spy because he's already occupying a double team. Now, when it comes to Wyatt 64.3, I feel like that's trending in the right direction. I pulled up TJ Slayton because I'm like, man, how's TJ Slayton played? His PFF grade on the year is down to a 43.9, which is crazy because when you look at the pressure rate and how he's played according to next-gen stats with GPS tracking, run stops, all that, he's one of the top defensive linemen. So I don't know what PFF sees here on tape when it comes to TJ Slayton, but they've got him grading out absolutely horrible.
I don't think PFF knows what they're seeing on tape with TJ.
When it comes to
he's playing his best ball in the last 2 years for sure right now.
Yeah. And it's crazy because last year he graded out a 62.3, this year a 43.9. And that game against New Orleans, he only played 17 snaps, but they had him at a 35.3. Now,
I think you're onto something. I think maybe their analytics, they're not taking into account, what we're trying to do with that front.
Right.
Like guys' assignments on a play. If his job is to occupy somebody and not get pressure versus getting pressure, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, it's why we always say PFF isn't everything. It's just another tool we can use. But I really do feel like TJ Slayton's having a better year than what PFF is suggesting. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. That's where he is sitting. And I was going to look up, who was the other one? Carl Brooks was the other one I want to look up. Let me pull up his numbers real quick. I want to see how Carl Brooks is grading out according to
this guy right here.
That guy right there, that grinning menace. So he on the year of 58.0, last year he was a 69.8. Let's see what we got here over the last 5 games. His ceiling has been a 70.8. His floor has been a 47.1. On the year against Arizona, he was a 93.0. And his worst graded game of the year was a 32.8 against Detroit in Week 9. He only played 15 snaps there. But the snap count is the big thing to me, Tim. Over the last 5 weeks, 5 weeks, here's his snap count: 20, 26, 25, 27, 28. So Carl Brooks is seeing the field much more often. There's no two ways about that. And again, you can take the PFF grade with a grain of salt. You can look at the next-gen stats, but the true assessment of a player is when a coach puts their ass on the field more, it tells you they see something in that player. These coaches aren't just going to march someone out there knowing that their job's on the line, right? They see something in Carl that they really like what he's doing. And it's almost like his grades are coinciding with Kenny Clark's, which I would love to look at the tape and see how often Kenny Clark and Carl Brooks are on the field at the same time. I'm wondering if they have Carl Brooks playing Kenny's role when Kenny comes off the field for a spell. I could see that being something similar, and that's why their grades are so similar from PFF standpoint too, because they're right there together, 58 and a 59.2.
It's like Carl K saying in the chat, right? Sitting on the bench molds the butt. Play on the field molds the brain. I love it. Yeah. Right? You gotta get out there, man. You gotta throw them out there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Let's go to the chat real quick as we get ready to wrap up. Prince in the chat says Enigbare has a nasty streak, which I like, but it's going to bottom coming in at the whistle, jumping on the pile, etc. He has gotten away with a couple. He has, Prince. I completely agree, man. And when he comes in, Tim, and I see him do that whole, let's just jump on the pile at the end. Oh, my God. Or like against Caleb Williams, you remember against Chicago, he had him dead to rights, and for whatever reason, he decided he's going to jump up like a damn tiger and try to land. It's like, bro, you're not going to find one fraction of a second of practice footage showing where a coach said, here's what I want you to do, Enigbare. Go in there and leave your feet and jump on top of the guy. It's not a real thing. So That's where Mike Wall would say, I don't know what they're coaching over there, because he said that a time or 12. For sure.
Absolutely. I agree with that. That's totally what I was thinking with him, right? He's a firebrand and you love it, but at the same time, you want to kind of harness that, right? Kind of get him focused and not doing the crazy extra stuff.
Definitely. Prince goes on to say, still impressed with Enigbare's recovery from that knee injury. Hasn't hampered him through the season. That's one thing. It's a great point, Prince. You never look up and think, man, that knee looks like it's bothering him. He's going 100 mile an hour every snap. So I
remember how excited we were when we found out it wasn't a full, I think it wasn't a full ACL tear or whatever it was. And that's been a pleasant surprise. And you're right. It's not holding them back at all.
Yeah. Ron Samble in the chat said, Wilson had a rough time in coverage last game against the Vikings. Does the Mike have to be the linebacker that drops back in Tampa too? It's not that simple. It's not, okay, the Mike always drops or the Will always drops. It depends on the formation the offense comes out, and it depends on what the defensive play call is. The point is they both have to be able to do it. So, in that case, treat it like he does have to be the guy who's always dropping in Tampa too. So that might be a weak spot. Now, we'll happily scheme around it. Probably, right? Maybe we don't run as much Tampa 2 knowing that, because you're going to have a significant amount of snaps where Wilson is going to have to cover the seam, right? Now, if it's Edgerrin Cooper covering the seam, turn that dog loose. But again, you can't just go out there and go, you're covering the seam. You can, but it makes your defense very predictable. That's where you'll see the offense come to the line. They'll use a little pre-snap motion and shift to see what you're in. And when they see a guy motion over, and a guy does not follow him, everybody knows that means it's zone coverage, right? But when you motion him over and you see the linebacker switch, not necessarily covering him, but switch, that's the tip. That dude who switched, who's going with the three, who's cheating toward the three now, the number 3 receiver, he's probably the guy who's going for it on a match principle. So that's how you can identify those things. If you see those backers switch in this game significantly with the motion, not necessarily walk out and play them square up man to man, then no, we designated one of those linebackers as the deep guy. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them come out in a Trey right look or a Trey left look. Let's say it's Trey right for simplicity here, and you motion that Y over to the left to make it Trey left out of a normal, or actually just to make it a dub set. If you motion him over and you see Edgerrin Cooper switch, then you probably identified Edgerrin Cooper's the guy who's predominantly going to be covering the seam. I don't like that approach. If you're on the field, you need to be able to do everything. And you shouldn't if you get to the point where you're going, he can't do that, so let's mold our whole defense around not letting him do that. Now you got yourself in trouble. You should give him that extra rep to try to make up for the bad one he made 3-4 weeks ago, whenever it was, or in this case, all the way back in September with Minnesota. So hopefully that makes sense, Ron. But I like where you're thinking there, man. It's like that's the stuff you want to look for. There's a difference between following him all the way over and backer switching. Now, if they don't switch, if they use that motion, if you see them motion Hawkinson over out of that Trey look into a dub set, or out of a dub set into a Trey look, and you just see the backers slightly shift over, but they don't change places, then they're trusting both of them to be able to do each assignment. So, all right, Tim, we got anything else, man? Anything else you want to hit on? I know we went over a little bit.
No, I think we've got everybody in the chat for the most part.
Cool. Yeah, hey, listen, the chat was on fire today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us here on this Saturday morning. I want to give a special shout out to Miss Jerry Weiss Corbley for becoming a YouTube member. We'll make sure we get you into the giveaway tomorrow. It is going to be an autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. This is one of the rare white jerseys we have.
Ooh, let's go.
Beckett. So it's got the numbers embroidered and everything. It looks a lot like an authentic NFL jersey. It's signed. We have the authenticity ticket there with it. It's going to be Dorsey Levens, obviously from the 90s Packers.
Love it.
Went on their run. So that's what we're going to be giving away, the away white autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. If you're a member on YouTube like Jerry Weiss Corbley, or you're a member in our Patreon group, I would recommend the Patreon group over the YouTube membership, but I know some people don't use Patreon. It's totally cool. If you want to join our Patreon group, scan the QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. You can just go to the website as well and search Packer Fan Total Access. If you're one of the 3 tiers, you could choose the cheapest one. That's totally cool. It's like $2 or something. That gets you access to our chat where you've seen us tracking the interceptions and all that stuff. A lot of good conversation going on in there. And that will get you entered in the giveaways as well. The reason I recommend the Patreon group over the YouTube membership, guys, is because before, for just out of the blue, our channel got demonetized with no true explanation what happened. Everyone who was a member, that membership is now deactivated. Yep. And all of a sudden they weren't entered into the contest because we didn't know who was who or what. So if you lean toward the Patreon group, that can never happen in Patreon, if that makes sense. So again, if you're more comfortable like Jerry Weiss Corbley being a YouTube member, we appreciate the support just as much as Patreon. Just know that's why we created the Patreon group, because we felt like it screwed the listeners as opposed to screwing us. It was like, man, this is trash. So and then Bucks Raise Bolts here in the chat. We got a Bucks fan who's a member. Appreciate you, buddy, being a member for a month. And thanks for supporting the channel, even though you root for another team. Totally cool, man. Good luck to your Bucks unless they play the Packers. And then Chris M with the super chat. Thank you so much, Chris, getting the kicker talk. Granted, again, I'm glad we did that too, Chris, because Brandon McManus, the second best kicker in the league as it sits right now. Pretty cool.
I love it. McMoney, baby. How about that 55-yarder, right? We talked about him being good inside of 50. He's hitting 55. I love it.
Yeah, and that's at Lambeau too, right? So
yeah. Put him in a dome. Let's see him work, right?
And you'll probably see that might be the difference in this game. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. Another piece of the puzzle put in place. Can we hang with one of the best teams in the entire National Football League? We're going to find out tomorrow. Road tested. We're going to be on the road for the playoffs, the entirety of the playoffs, for however long we last in the playoffs. It's going to be a great test on how this team can perform on the road. Tim, thank you for your time, bud. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Clay.
All right, guys, we'll see. We'll probably do a show tonight. If something comes up and we don't, just look for the link. If the link's created, we'll definitely be doing a show. I got to try to get my schedule organized. And, Tim, if you're available, we'd love to have you. If not, we completely understand. But everybody have a great day. We will potentially see you tonight. We'll definitely be seeing you multiple times tomorrow as it's game day, baby. Everybody have a great day.
And we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.